All right, and welcome to week 3 of the Tours Plaza premiere. So, before I get to the single game reviews, I'd just like to say a couple general things about the tour so far. So, at the moment in the standings, the Absols are on top with 2 wins, and they had another dominant win this week with 6-2 over the Snuggle Bumblebees. Second, we have the stockpiling Alakazams, who had a nice win this week after a tie last week, which I honestly thought they would win because they had about a 4-1 lead, I believe, going into the weekends. And then we have the Piplups and the Lurantis kind of in the middle of the pack, also Lotads. And the poor Snuggle Bumblebees are at the moment in last, but hopefully they can turn that around. They've had a couple tough matchups in the first 2 weeks. So at the moment, my pick to win it all is the Absols. They've just been playing consistently very well. I think they've been doing a really good job from builder and kind of just won mostly off of team building, and then they've just played solid to back up their team. Alright, so let's dive into the single matchups. Or review of the matchups, not predictions yet. Alright, so we had LOL Troll Game versus Alvis Wrath, I believe. No, Quero. Keeps changing their name. It's so hard to remember who's who, especially since everyone's M Genius now. Anyway, LTG won this match. He opened up with a Salamence Regirock, which was a set that I really liked. So he got his Stealth Rocks out, and then he was able to just use Explosion and take out his opponent's Pokemon. And then, essentially what happened is he got Rock Polish off with Primal Groudon, and Quero's team just wasn't able to counter that, and Groudon swept. Then we had Prank versus Laddie. This was a very interesting game. I think Laddie brought a really cool team, especially with the Boom Burst Meloetta, which was incredibly powerful. At one point, he missed a Will-O-Wisp on Mega Gyarados, and it actually looked like Prank would reverse sweep and end up taking the win. But poor Mega Gyarados was very slow, must have been adamant, and Zorora was able to outspeed and take the kill. So Laddie did end up winning this. Then we had Carl versus PA in Camelmon's Monotype. This was technically a timer win, but before Carl timed out, PA took a couple of Carl's Mons, I believe, and just based on how the battle was going, I really didn't see a scenario, unless PA just completely threw it, where he would lose. UU plus UUBL Inverse, no Z. We had Saba versus Plimslepunks. This was my biggest highlight match going into this week. Unfortunately, it was a really rough matchup for Saba. Plimsle's Blissey just really destroyed, and unfortunately, Saba wasn't able to get off Trick and give his Porygon Z's specs to Blissey, and that was really his one main chance at winning this matchup. Kind of an unfortunate game there. Ranbats, such an untier. Cat Doubles OU, we had Spitfire versus Mamalu. And Spitfire won last week, but ended up losing, and Mamalu lost last week and won here. I think Mamalu just played much better. He brought a Mega Charizard Y, and Spitfire actually brought a Tyranitar, which is a very, very good mon to have against Y. And in addition to that, he had Stealth Rocks. But Mamalu just played really well, keeping the Stealth Rocks off with his Mew. And also, I think Spitfire played poorly with his Tyranitar and really let Mamalu's Landorus get the better of him, so Mamalu took the win here. Then we had Starreal versus Sacred. This game was just really worst game of the tour so far, I have to say. Starreal brought an Incineroar, I believe, and so the battle never actually happens because that is a banned mon, and I just encourage everyone, again, to look carefully at the bans and unbans. So hopefully that does not happen again. Uber's Blitz, we had Manu versus Hilda. Manu won. I think really Manu won this match after turn 2 when basically what happened is Manu opened Scolipede and Hilda opened with a Primal Groudon. So Primal Groudon lowered Scolipede to the 1 HP, and then Scolipede struck back with Endeavor, as Scolipedes do in Ubers. And then Primal Groudon only had 1 health, and so was easily killed. And so I think it was a big mistake on Hilda's part to throw Primal Groudon so early, and because of that, Xerneas was able to really just sweep the rest of his team. I think Foresight is the biggest skill that improves with experience, though, so hopefully he can get better at that in the future. The biggest mistake I see in Ubers is people actually do have Xerneas counters built in, but they just make the mistake of throwing them early on. And that's just always an unfortunate way to go down. So then we had the Bunnelbees versus the Absol Posters. This was the biggest blowout of TPP so far, but at least it wasn't an 8-0 or a 7-1. We started off with Tempering versus Ice Master 523. There actually is not a replay for this match, but Ice Master did bring a Sablonite Cradily, which I think was a really good set, and he just kind of outplayed. So, then we had Spookyland versus Alu. They actually both brought some very stally teams, which I thought was a very interesting choice, considering normally this is a very offensive tier. Ultimately, Alu just had a solid stall breaker. He brought a Guts Garchomp that was just able to do Lantin, so that was very interesting. I've liked Lance teams that she's brought so far. Trick Room week 1 and then Stall week 2, both very interesting. I'm looking forward to see what she brings in the future. And I think this was a really great win for Alu, especially considering I believe Alu lost last week? Or won? Yeah, actually won. Yeah, so I'm sorry. Yeah, Alu is 2-0, so great win for them as well. Alright, so then we had Camomon's Monotype Excelsior versus Kither. Besides Steril's game, which never happens, this game was the second most disappointing of the week. They both brought Mono Fire, and the difference was very clear. I think Kither won this from Builder, and in addition to that, just completely outplayed. Kither brought an Intimidate Arcanine that was Grass and Steel, which I thought was an incredible choice of a Mon, really great usage, and also a Ghost and Normal Mega Charizard X, and Ghost and Normal is a fantastic typing. I really thought Excelsior's team wasn't very well built, and he just really got outplayed. So that brings Kither to 2-0, and just from what I've seen so far, Kither has played the best of anyone in the Camo Mono tier. I think he's just been bringing consistently strong teams and then outplaying. Okay. So UU plus UUBL no Z. Inverse. Trace versus Axe. Axe was actually subbed out, unfortunately, because there were some scheduling issues, and the Numberman took his place. This was a pretty good match, in my opinion. Trace got off to a very strong start. He had a substitute Articuno, which worked out pretty nicely. But ultimately, the Numberman was able to bring it back with Mega Beedrill, and that was just a good win. Good solid game for both players, though the Numberman just ended up outplaying in the end. So then we had Ranbats. Cheese won as untier. Cap doubles Spookshaka versus Enpopats. So Freeze brought kind of a meme team with a Simple Beam Mega Audino, so he could do that into either a Bulk Up Flame Charge Incineroar that was on his team, or the Dragon Dance Zygarde. He made the mistake of trying to set up Zygarde while Enpopat had a Mega Caesar out. And since Caesar has priority, setting up speed just really wasn't useful, and so Caesar was just able to destroy Zygarde and Mega Audino both. And then there really wasn't a way where Freeze could have come back from that. Good win for Enpopat after a really rough game for him last week. Even though I believe he won, I did not think he played well. But here, I did think he played solid, so definitely a good comeback for him. NU custom rules, we had Arverardo versus M Genius, or Boyne / Ainscrad. And I actually passed Ainscrad, the team that he ended up using. It's a team that I had great success with during the NU Open, and had beaten quite a few strong NU mains, actually. And it was a screens electrode team, where then you set up a agility Kingler or a rock polish swords dance Torterra or Calm Minds Comfy after setting up screens. I passed him that because I thought Arverardo is definitely a better player overall, but I think hitting him was something that might surprise him was his best chance at winning. Basically what happened in this match is that Ainscrad kind of overread on every play. And the tricky thing with reads is that if you make a read and you get it, everyone's like, brilliant read. But if you make a read and don't get it, it's really just a sad overread. And Arverardo was really good at the psychology of the game and just understanding that Ainscrad was trying to make these crazy reads. And I think his experience as a player just gave him a better mindset going in. And he really got into the head of his opponent and was just able to outplay from there. Then we had Siembro versus Nakib. This was actually a timer loss, so Nakib won. But even without timer, I think Nakib would have ended up winning. He got up to a pretty strong start early on, and that brings Nakib to 2-0. So Lightning Lotads versus my picture-perfect Piplups. The Piplups won, which was very thrilling to me, especially coming off of a loss to the dangerous Absols in Week 1. MNMTS, we had McGagger versus Velve. Velve brought a very cool team, in my opinion, though she did not have to reveal much of it at all. Apparently, Ursaring was all she needed to just take the win. Then IKIQ faced off against Pokeart 2004. This was kind of a tricky match because going in, I've been helping a lot with the building for this tier. And last week, I built Pokeart's team, and it worked pretty well. So I was trying to help this week, and the team I passed Pokeart actually had 2 mons that were banned, Hoopa Unbound and Keldeo. So Pokeart did a really good job of editing the team, taking out those mons, and then adding in the Magic Bounce Chansey from last week. And also, IKIQ didn't even bring stab moves on, well, any special stab mons moves on any of his mons. Like, for example, his Ferrothorn, it did have the Flash Fire, but then it was like heavy slam, and then no Leech Seed, no String Sap, no Anchor Shot. Just kind of poorly built on his end. I really felt like he just saw the almost any ability part and not the stab part almost. So that was kind of unfortunate, but still always happy to take the win. And that brings Pokeart 2004 to 2-0, which is very impressive. So then we had ODR versus Siphicon in Camo Mono. This was an interesting match. ODR brought a Mega Sableye, which was kind of his main Pokemon throughout the battle. Him and Bisharp kind of led the charge on his side. While Siphicon brought Mega Latias, who I think people are beginning to realize Latias is completely broken in this meta. And I feel like in the future, players are just going to end up standardly bringing a Psychic type or an Electric type just to counter that one Mon. Siphicon did win. It wasn't a perfectly clean game. Siphicon made a couple poor plays. For example, switching in Salamence with Intimidate on Bisharp, who had Defiant, but ultimately he was able to come out with the win. I think he just built a better team, and in the end, that was why he won. So then we had Farneo 2 versus the Amuse, and the Amuse, I really questioned the Amuse's use of Cloyster going into the game, but after seeing that Cloyster slaughter Breloom, I am willing to admit I was wrong. Amuse predicted that his opponent will bring a Breloom after Amuse just got decimated by it in week 1. And so now he had an Overcoat, Surf, Ice and Water type Cloyster, which is really the perfect counter to a Breloom in Inverse. There's really nothing a Breloom can do against it. And ultimately, Snorlax ended up delivering the final kills and just sweeping, despite being frozen, actually. So, quite a couple freeze hacks this week. So, good job to Amuse. I have much more confidence in them after this game, so great win there. Then, demote all ROs. What is with all these RO names? Elgino. Yeah. So, Elgino beat youngster Joey. That was the first match that happened this week. Just typical Ranbats. I think Elgino won because he's just a better player, but yeah. Then we had Cap Doubles. This was my match. I brought the team I used against Anskrad during the semifinals of BLT, and that team can not just have a clean game. There was an unfortunate freeze hacks during this game. My Mega Abomasnow froze my opponent's Porygon 2 while he was trying to set up Trick Room. However, that being said, I still think I probably would have won, probably about 65-35 odds without the freeze, just because I did expect Frosty to bring Mega Camerupt, and because of that reason, I brought a Shookaberry Volcanion and a Groundinium Xenocrozma, so I did have counters in place for that mon. That being said, hacks is always unfortunate, and I think Frosty did play solid during the game, so I think I've got more confidence in them going into week 3. So then we had NU, Alvis Wrath versus Geove 97. I think Geove played this pretty poorly. Ended up throwing a Silvally Steel for really no good reason. Alvis just really outplayed this match and got the win. Roggenwald versus Dan. Dan had a very, very bad matchup. His opponent brought Ditto, and Dan brought a team from BLT, which was incredibly weak to that mon. And in addition to that, he was haxed. Roggenwald opened with Zygarde and got 3 consecutive para-hacks on Dan's Arceus, and that Arceus was actually running Ice Beam, so that is just even more unfortunate. So that wraps up recap of week 2, so let's dive into predictions for week 3. So we're starting off strong this week. Buster the Laddie versus Velvet Blood. This is my number 1 highlight match this week. Laddie versus Velv is going to be a fantastic match. I think they'll both bring really good teams. That being said, I'm going to stick with my Piplups, and I'm going to favor Velv 60-40. Ivy versus Pokeart 2004. Who's Ivy? I'm confused by these names up here. Okay, I have no idea. But I'm going to favor Pokeart because 2-0 in the tier, just been playing solid overall. So, let's go Piplups. Camomano, Carl Dude Guy versus Siphicon. I think this will be a really good matchup. Carl came off, he had strong win week 1 and then a rough loss week 2. Siphicon had a rough loss week 1 and then a strong win week 2, so I don't know. I think it could really go either way. I think it'll likely depend on matchup and if someone can pull out a better set. I'm going to have to give it to Siphicon, 55-45. I'm going to stick with my Piplup team spirit here. So then we have Sacred CV versus the Amuse. I think Sacred's been playing okay. The Amuse brought a team I was very much impressed with last week, and I think they're likely to just do it again. So let's go Amuse, 65-35, Piplup's up 4-0. Rambaz TS Camo, I'm going to have to give this to Casual.exe. He's a very good player, as I learned during Tours Plaza Classic, and Hockey played very, very poorly in Week 1. Mamalu versus myself. I don't have a prediction to make. I will not be predicting my own matches, but bring it on. Then NU, Plimslepunks versus Geove97. This feels like a bit of a lopsided matchup. Plim is a very good NU player, and I have not been impressed by Geove. Geove just played poorly against Alvis last week, and in my opinion, Plimsle is quite a bit better than Alvis at NU, so I have a hard time seeing Plimsle losing this. So I'll give it to Plimslepunks, 75-25. Then Hilda versus Dan Demand 99. I feel like this one could go either way depending on matchup. They both had rough losses last week. That said, I'm going to give it to Dan just because I think he's more experienced in Ubers, so he should be able to outplay. And I will give it to him 60-40. So I will pick the Piplups 6-2 over the Alakazams. And let's beat MG. This is the most important match of the regular season. So let's win it, Piplups. Alright, so Lurantis versus Absol Posters. Lurantis are coming off of a rough loss last week, and Absol Posters are coming off of a very strong win. So, should be interesting to see how that goes. LTG versus Ice Master 523. They're both coming off of wins in their respective tier. This should be a pretty good matchup. I'm going to end up giving it to Ice Master just because I think he did more outplaying in his game, where LTG won off of a sweep because his opponent just really wasn't prepared for Primal Groudon. Stabmon's Poison Adhesive versus Alupariza. Oh, this is interesting, actually. They moved PA out of Mono. Wow. You know, I'm very excited for this. That's a highlight match. Poison Adhesive versus Alu should be a very, very fun match. I'm going to pick Alu 60-40 just because they played this tier last week and beat Lance, who is a very good player, whereas PA is just transferring into this now. Camo Mono, we have Saba versus Kither. Wow, we've got good matches this week. That is a fantastic match. Saba is coming off of a loss, but I think he's really going to bounce back and build something very strong. Kither has been playing absolutely phenomenally in this tier, however. So I'm going to have to put that at a coin flip, 50-50. I wish I could pick them both or neither, but I don't know. That should be a good match. Look forward to that taking place for sure. UU plus UUBL, no Z inverse, Prank versus Axe. I'm going to give it to Axe. I haven't been impressed by Prank so far, and Axe brought a very cool looking team week 1. I think he'll come back really strong, and also he's kind of had like 2 weeks to prepare now because the number man took his spot last week, so I don't see him losing this. He should probably win, and I'll pick Axe 70-30. This match happens. Ainscrad lost. His opponent did go berserk. Boyne really had no chance. He just had a terrible matchup, and that's it. That's how Ransbats is. Cap doubles, Spitfire Arcanine versus Enpopat. So, Enpopat did win last week, and Spitfire did lose, but I think Enpopat's win was pretty much just what he had to do was set up Caesar, and then it was pretty straightforward from there. I think I saw Spitfire utilize more actual playing skill, even though he lost, just because there were so many switches in his match, and if he can learn from his mistakes last week, he should be able to take the win, so I'll favor Spitfire 60-40. NU Starreal versus Nakib. I'm going to have to give this to Nakib 60-40, just because he has been playing solid, 2-0 I believe, and Starreal is 0-2, and there's the added possibility of bringing a Passimian or an Incineroar again, so hopefully that doesn't happen. Uber's Blitz, Manu versus Besgal. I'm happy to see the Absols are putting a manager in a tier. I think Manu is a solid player, but Besgal is... I've seen a lot more of them, so I'm going to have to favor Besgal 65-35 in that match. So Lightning Lotaz versus Snuggle Bunnelbees, both coming off of losses last week, looking to rebounds. Mix and Mega Tier Shift, Jay versus Temp. I'm going to pick Temp 60-40. I've seen him utilize much more building skill throughout this tour, so that's an easy choice. Then Alvis versus Siembro 26. Siembro had a timer loss, which is unfortunate, so he'll be looking to bounce back from that. And Alvis did win in a solid fashion. Looks like Lotads are really switching up their lineup this week. Yeah, I'll pick Alvis 60-40. Then ODR versus Sambiku Kaiju. I think this should be a pretty solid match. I think ODR is a good player, but just lost from Builder last week, and if he can build a solid team, he should be able to keep up with Sam. But that being said, I think it's more likely that Sam will build a better team and just win the game off of that, so I'll favor him 60-40. UU plus UUBL, Aethernum versus Trace. That is an exciting match. Battle of the Moderators, whose names are the color green. And I'm going to have to give it to Trace 60-40 just because I think he's a better player overall. Still, I wouldn't put it past Aethernum to bring some sort of epic set and then be able to win off of that. So, Ranbat's Tier Shift Camo, Elgino versus Cheese. I'm actually going to predict Elgino just because they did both win last week, but Elgino is a better player overall, and I think he should just win on his better understanding of Ranbats and Mons in general. So Cap DOU, Frosty Icelad versus Freeze Shaka. My suggestion for this match is that we force each of them to bring mono ice teams. Their names both have ice, and I think that would be very interesting. I propose we ban Freeze Dry, and that would be an exciting matchup. In all seriousness, though, I'm going to have to pick Frosty 55-45 over Freeze Shaka because in my experience against him, he did play solid. I kind of got the feeling that he was a pretty good player overall. I have played Freeze a lot in testing, though, so I wouldn't put it past him to end up pulling off the upset and winning this. So then NU, we have Farnio 2 versus Arverardo. I'm going to have to pick Arverardo 75-25. He's just been playing very, very well as expected, and I just think he should win this. Uber's Blitz, Roggenald versus Excelsior. I'm going to pick Roggenald because I think he's a much better player, and Excelsior built very poorly last week, so that could potentially happen again. But let's go into Week 3 with our best foot forward, and good luck to all the players. Hopefully none of you get hacked, and go Piplups. Beat MG's team. See y'all next week.